You've done all these lovely pros, and now the cons is teenage boys. That's it. Absolutely. Yes. No, I
Right.
get it. I get what you're saying.
And you were a teenage boy at one point, right?
Was I? Okay. I'm going to take your word for it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Very Special Relationship, the podcast that extends the hand of friendship and indeed help, if needed, across the Atlantic. My name's Matt Johnston, and I host a YouTube channel called The Interesting Times. And my very special co-host is Andrea Bridges-Smith from the US, who hosts the Phoenix News Network.
Great to be here.
Great to have you, Andrea. So I saw a speech given by Trump the other day where he said Biden was in danger of taking us into World War II. Wait, there's a second part? I mean, I knew Biden was old, but I didn't realize he was that old. And I certainly don't want to go through World War II again. Here in the UK, we had rationing until 1954, 9 years after the end of World War II. So, Andrea, honestly, what is going on with that?
Well, here we have a man who constantly says that Biden is old and feeble, but he is in fact 3 years younger than Biden and just completely incapable of voicing a coherent thought. And he has been caught once again saying something ridiculous. Imagine that. He also seems to think that for some reason you need to show ID to buy a loaf of bread. And as a normal human who actually purchases bread, unlike him, I can assure you that the Gestapo is not in the bakery aisle checking people's papers. So,
Well, not yet, anyway.
yeah, right. But, you know, speaking of whatever world war we're on now, 2 or 3 or 6, or who even knows, it's not like anybody's keeping track. Matt, it turns out that I owe some people some money. Yeah.
Oh.
So you see, I had bets on World War III being kicked off by Russia and Ukraine, which seems like the logical choice, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I was wrong, had it all wrong. The correct answer was India and Canada. Oh, very long odds on that one. Matt, as a member of a country that is friendlier than most with both of those countries, who are you rooting for in World War III?
Well, conversely, I just wanted to say I've become rather rich over the last week. But anyway, so my partner is actually Indian, so obviously it's going to be Canada. No, just kidding. Just kidding. See, as a Brit, this one does make me feel a little bit odd. I am suppressing the desire to go, just knock it off, you two. Don't make me come back there.
Right, like, I will turn this entire empire around if you kids can't be quiet. Yeah, it's weird. They're doing all of these little digs at each other, like, you know, expelling diplomats and canceling visas and things like that. So I don't know. I hope they can work it out. The last thing we need, I think, is more international conflict right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just cool it, everybody. Just cool it. I get the feeling it's going to be all right because it's, from what I understand, I mean, India can get a little hot-headed. Certainly under Modi, he can be hot-headed. I know that. But the Canadians always strike me as being rather polite. So here's hoping they can sort it out between them. Certainly.
Well, the good news is that if Canada does drop a bomb on India, they will get a lovely apology note right afterwards. So you got that at least. So Matt, I heard another story that Liz Truss gave an interview where she said she did not actually crash the economy, despite all evidence to the contrary. And boy, is there a lot of evidence. And then we've got Theresa May declaring herself proudly woke. There just seems to be like a rash of female conservative politicians over there just losing their minds. What on earth is going on?
Yes, it is strange to see Liz Truss try and reinvent herself, by saying, I didn't crash the economy. What are you talking about? Nothing to do with me. It's like, we were there. This is only last year. I know we're not supposed to have the attention span these days of like a sort of a forgetful goldfish, but for goodness sake, we were aware of what was happening at the same time. And also with Theresa May, well, look, she's got a book coming out, so who knows? Maybe it's got something to do with that, right?
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I would take their claims with a little pinch of salt because she's also said that she's always said that immigration has been good for the country, even though as Home Secretary, she implemented the hostile environment for immigrants. Now, when you implement something and call it the hostile environment, let's be honest, it's not really that welcoming, is it? It's not like the in-laws turn around and put on the hostile environment for you. When you go around, they go, "Oh, he said she was a lovely girl. Oh, he said she was lovely." Yeah, absolutely. No, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
Part of her implementation was she would have vans go around with large billboards on them, telling people to rat out their neighbor if they're likely to be an illegal immigrant.
What?
Yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Now,
Jeez.
Talking of reinventing yourself, of course, Liz Truss, fresh from her watch. I think I'm going to go with the word watch, as that describes a short enough time period as Prime Minister. Now,
tenure would be too long, right?
Yes, absolutely. Term, no, forget it. It's a watch.
Yeah.
Basically, you get up, you have a look round, you leave number 10.
There you go.
So she is now telling us, in fact, that she was right, but we never gave her a chance. I suppose the way she looks at it is the economy's like anything else. It always gets worse before it gets better. And in fact, she's genuinely saying this. She was saying if she was still in charge, we'd have made an extra £35 billion by 2025. Although not sure if that includes the £30 billion she also lost out the country during her shift.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's an idea that we have tested on both sides of the Atlantic. All you need to do is just give a bunch of tax breaks to really, really rich people, and everything sorts itself out magically. It's been proven to work time and again. So, but you just have to let it go for longer and longer and longer. And then at some point, probably it will eventually work out, I think is the logic.
Oh, Rishi's completely on board with that one. Yes, absolutely. And the point being that the tax breaks aren't big enough. Make them slightly bigger. That's the answer. No tax break can be too small.
Now, what do you think is the ideal tax rate? Should we just collect the taxes directly from poor people and give them to rich people instead of, that's got to be better for the economy than just charging them no taxes at all. Doesn't that make sense?
It kind of cuts out the middleman, doesn't it? I don't know what the middleman would do, but whether the middleman would pay any taxes is a good question. Although it would then actually not be a good idea for the government, who then obviously would be rather clear. You sit there and go, so what do you guys do again? Yeah.
Right.
I'm getting my money from the poor people. Why are you here? Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's a flawless system. No notes. So, Matt, we also have some female politicians over here misbehaving themselves. I'm sure by now you have seen the video of Lauren Boebert at the Beetlejuice musical.
Oh, yes. Now, don't tell me you're about to describe her as a hands-on politician, right?
Yes, those hands are all the way on. Luckily, she's now apologized for the overuse of those hands, so that's good. Hopefully, she's learned her lesson. But we also have Christy Nunn, the governor of South Dakota and a possible Trump running mate, who has allegedly been having an affair with one of Trump's aides for years. And I just want to give Christy some advice here, if I could. Now, I'm not a person who condones extramarital affairs. I don't think that's necessarily the best idea. But if you are going to have one, don't have one with a Trump staffer, because every single one of those text messages is going to end up in the public court record. This guy gets a subpoena every 10 minutes. His team, his lawyers, his employees, everybody's getting subpoenaed. All those text messages are going to be a matter of public record in no time. So if you got to go to the bone zone with somebody, make sure they are not affiliated with the Trump campaign in any way. That's just good life advice, no matter what. And Matt, honestly, if you've ever got a little bit of a flagging libido, you can take a page from these ladies' books and just pose for a Christmas card photo with the biggest gun that you can find, because apparently it really gets you in the mood.
Really? Oh, nothing says Christmas like guns, does it? And maybe
Right.
stick some hand grenades on the Christmas tree too.
Yes, always a festive choice. Now, Matt, speaking of reasons to drink, I also saw a story that in England and Wales, 2 pubs a day are closing. And I just want to check in with you and ask, are you all right? Is there a sufficient supply of watering holes left? Because I don't think you can make it through a Rishi Sunak administration stone cold sober.
Oh, don't I know it? Here's the thing. This has been going on. To be fair, this has been going on not just years, but decades. I mean, I think it's probably something to do with not so many. I mean, it's exacerbated by, COVID, essentially. After COVID's happened, not so many people going to the pubs. Obviously, it's a huge shame. I remember there was a quote on the side of a pub called the Talisman in Parkgate. The pub's still there. The quote isn't. And I can't remember what it was, but it was something along the lines of, when you rejoice, drink up, be merry, because when you lose the last of your pubs, you will lose yourself as a country. And I pray that day will never come. I mean, all the best times and all the best ideas come from alcohol with friends, right?
Right.
And besides that, I'm actually British. So pubs represent the only place we can loosen up and indeed, hug people. I mean, you certainly can't do it sober.
No, heaven forbid. You got to keep those emotions in check and your upper lip nice and stiff. Don't let it out.
So, Andrea, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Boris Johnson's initial draft resignation letter as Prime Minister has been leaked. I didn't realize there was an initial one, but yes, rather fascinating. It really shows why his party were right to ditch him, and just as the UK were actually wrong to vote him in. Now, it mentions his gripe with being asked to resign with dignity, and he made some crap about euthanasia. Are you familiar with Dignitas, the Swiss euthanasia clinic?
No, I had not heard about that.
Yeah. Keep it tasteful, Boris. Hey, there we go. He also goes on to blame Twitter without registering the fact that Twitter was around before 2019 when he got elected. And he also said that he couldn't expect his colleagues to glue Humpty together again. And let me just say, I'm glad Humpty got dumptied.
Yes, I think everyone can agree with that sentiment. I'm wondering what other bits of that speech were so objectionable that they didn't make it into the final draft. I would love to see the full draft of that.
Absolutely. Can't wait for that to turn up, can we? I mean,
Right.
I love the fact that from the article itself, it mentions the fact that Johnson wrote out this thing and then handed out to colleagues. So they would just come along going, not saying that, that's a bad idea, on about half the page. And I was just wondering, I mean, it's never going to happen, but if Donald Trump was ever to draft a resignation letter, what would that look like?
Oh God, it would be hours long. We'd be there for days. He would just be repeating things about, random things giving you cancer, like watermelons give you cancer now, and the sky is purple, and, the election was stolen. We'd have a whole section on the whole election being stolen thing. Oh, it would be insufferable. So on the one hand, I'm glad that he's still in the race, so we don't have to listen to that. But on the other hand, we still have to listen to him because he's in the race. It's really not sure how to feel about it.
I mean, having everything through letter could actually work for him, really. Well, because let's be honest, when he speaks, he kind of works against himself, doesn't he, really?
He does. He's got this habit, especially lately, of incriminating himself. I don't know if you've heard about this interview that he did over the weekend, where he sat down with someone at NBC News, and it was a very softball interview. It was very like, how are you feeling? British people would have hated it because it talked about feelings. But he said a few things in there that basically obliterated some of his legal defenses in some of his legal cases. So, some of the prosecutors over here have been trying to put a gag order on him. so that he'll stop saying things publicly that could affect the case. But now they're like, you know what? On the other hand, let the man keep talking. Let's hear what he has to say.
Yeah.
What might he confess to next? Let's find out where some bodies are buried.
Yeah, it's when the defense start putting a gagging order on you that you know that the problems start.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
that would be bad.
Andrea, I thought I would try out something a little bit different at this point of the show.
Okay.
Now, during lockdown, I got hooked on a YouTube on a show called What Would You Do? Have you ever heard of it?
No, I don't know that I have.
Okay. Right, that's thrown me a little bit because it is an American show. Sorry, it might not be that popular. I understand there's plenty of American shows. It doesn't mean you've seen them all. So for those Brits and Americans that don't know about What Would You Do, it is a show that creates these rather awkward situations to find out what unsuspecting members of the public would do. Pretty self-explanatory, really.
Sure.
And I just realized that what I'm about to suggest is nothing like that. But I'm still going to ask you, what would you do in a certain scenario? So.
Okay.
You're Prime Minister of the UK. You have carte blanche with the laws. You can just go, boom, I'm going to do this, or no, I'm not going to do that.
I'm drunk with power already.
Yeah. Which is what most prime ministers are, let's be honest. So there is an idea being bandied around in the UK, and it's reducing the voting age from 18 to 16. So Andrea, over to you. Good idea, bad idea?
Okay, let's see. Well, I think there's definitely some arguments that can be made for and against. On the for side, I think getting, younger people into politics at an earlier age and getting that civic engagement going as early as possible is always going to be a good thing. The other thing is that a 16-year-old is going to have to live with the consequences of the government's actions for far longer than the 70 and 80-year-olds who currently make the laws. It won't be around to see the worst effects of a lot of them. So, makes sense for them to have a voice. On the other side, though, teenage boys.
Right.
And that's really all I can say about that.
That's it. That is the negative. You've done all these lovely pros, and now the cons is teenage boys. That's it. Absolutely. Yes. No, right. I get it. I get what you're saying, in fact. That makes sense. Can I just say as well, that's probably one of the most balanced arguments I've heard in recent days with reference to this. Everybody over here is either going, and it's come down to a left or right thing, because 16-year-olds more likely be left-wing.
Right.
So a lot of people on the left side are going, well, as you say, about sort of the fact that they're going to be taking part in, they're going to be certainly living with the consequences, whatever the government decides. Right. And obviously other people are saying, well, hang on a minute, a lot of these people are still at school, for goodness sake. So, yeah, I can see both sides myself, absolutely.
Well, and you were a teenage boy at one point, right?
Was I? Okay. I'm going to take your word for it.
It's been a minute, perhaps, but were you a civically engaged young lad when you were a teenage boy?
I got to be honest, I kind of wasn't. I genuinely I think I probably didn't vote until I hit my 20s. Ashamed to say it, and I didn't really pay much attention to who stood for what. I was too busy sort of getting drunk and going out, I suppose, and and girls, I'll say it, booze and girls. I mean, what can I tell you? I was really unorthodox in that regard.
Yes, it was just you doing that. No one else has done that. I kind of was at the other end of the spectrum in terms of political engagement when I was a teenager, because I was a giant dork. Right. Basically the same amount of dork that you see in front of you right now was still happening back then. I don't know if you guys have Model UN over there. Do you guys have that?
No. What is that?
So it's Model United Nations. So all the schools in the area get a country or two, and they have to do research and write resolutions on behalf of their country. and they go to this like citywide Model UN conference, and everybody, pretends like they're in the UN.
Wow.
And it was a very. I remember there was one year where someone wrote a resolution about female genital mutilation, and they kept saying those words over and over again, and all of us kids were just like, Jesus Christ, what the? We didn't even know that was a thing. That sounds terrifying. But I actually led a protest at Model UN one year, which is the cherry on top of how big of a dork I am.
Wow. How about that? Can I ask what country you represented?
Our school had Tanzania and Venezuela, and
Okay.
we were fighting hard to try to get the Tanzanians onto the Security Council, which, as art imitates life, failed spectacularly.
Wow. I have to say, no disrespect to Tanzania, but that would be the step up of step ups. Let's
Right.
not kid ourselves here.
It was a hard sell. I tried Tanzania. Sorry, I did what I could.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, well, that is all the time that we have for today. So I want to thank everybody out there for listening and watching. This is so much fun to do, so thank you for coming along for the ride with us. Thank you so much to Matt. Always good to see you.
Thank you.
And if you want to see more of Matt, and I can't imagine why you wouldn't, head on over to @TheInterestingTimes UK on YouTube to see his channel. And if you want more Phoenix News Network in your life, head on over to this channel. We have a new show coming out every Friday that has all the latest on U.S. news and politics. We will be back same time next week with more. And in the meantime, have a good week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.